Hey, Dr. Franks, we're here to talk about free speech, correct?
Yes.
And we're here to talk about that being a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is important to emphasize why I am here, which is to talk about my views on the First Amendment.
No,
That's
not what I ask you. Do you think the Supreme Court is a death panel?
In the context of the cases that, not for free speech, no, that was not the context of that particular
Oh, my goodness, okay.
Are suing the State Department for that, and it is ongoing, this support of the censorship industrial complex. It is the bureaucracy, really, which perpetuates this even more than a particular administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Liberty Watchtower, where truth takes center stage. Here, we keep you informed, engaged, and thinking critically in a world that often demands it. If you're new to the channel, like this video, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to never miss a dose of real, unfiltered truth. Now, let's dive in. At the core of our nation's founding is the principle that every American has the right to speak freely, to express opinions, challenge authority, and engage in the public square without fear of government retaliation or suppression. The First Amendment to the Constitution enshrines this right, and it is not up for debate. It is not optional. It is foundational. But today, that foundation is being tested in new and troubling ways. This hearing comes at a time when Americans across the political spectrum are voicing serious concerns about the role of the federal government in regulating speech, especially online.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of you for taking your time to be here today. Dr. Franks, we're here to talk about free speech, correct?
Yes.
And we're here to talk about that being a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the Supreme Court plays an essential role in guaranteeing those constitutional rights, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about a tweet that you had in January 2024. The Supreme Court is a death panel. Is that your opinion?
In the context of this hearing, I think it is important to emphasize why I am here, which is to talk about my views on the First Amendment.
No, that's not what I ask you. Do you think the Supreme Court is a death panel?
In the context of the cases that, not for free speech, no, that was not the context of that particular
Oh, my goodness, okay. Well, it appears that you see the Supreme Court as a death panel, and that is some of the same rhetoric that, unfortunately, we continue to hear from some on the left who are trying to villainize justices who are doing their job. And I would like to just ask you, knowing that you have put this out, that the Supreme Court is a death panel, then let me ask you this. Do you look at Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson as members of the death panel, or is this just the justices that you disagree with?
I do not believe that the comments that you are referring to have relevance for this particular hearing, but here's what I will say. This is an administration that is threatening judges in addition to other people that he disagrees with. So, okay, yes, if your question is, do I defend judges? Am I worried about judges' security? I am. I am worried about this administration essentially threatening those judges.
I want to talk with you, Ms. Hemingway, about the State Department's use of the Global Engagement Center to censor news outlets like the Daily Wire and the Federalist. I know that this is something that you have had to deal with. And Daily Wire is located in Tennessee. We're proud of them. We are delighted that they chose to move from California over to Tennessee. And It is my understanding that the Global Engagement Center was created to counter messaging from bad actors, including terrorist groups, but the Biden administration weaponized it to silence conservative groups. And what has the censorship, I call it the censorship industrial complex, what do you think they're trying to hide when it targets outlets like the Federalist and the Daily Wire?
We are hearing credible reports and seeing growing evidence that agencies designed to protect national security, such as the State Department's Global Engagement Center, may have been used to suppress domestic voices, particularly those expressing conservative viewpoints. What began as a mission to combat foreign disinformation and propaganda may now be contributing to what some have called a censorship industrial complex. When unelected bureaucrats, in coordination with big tech companies and so-called watchdog organizations, begin blacklisting news outlets and silencing dissenting opinions, it raises a serious and urgent question: are we preserving the spirit of the First Amendment, or are we betraying it? Equally troubling is the growing use of inflammatory rhetoric aimed at our judiciary, particularly the United States Supreme Court. In today's hearing, we'll be addressing a comment made earlier this year describing the court as a death panel. This kind of language doesn't just reflect a political disagreement, it risks undermining public trust in the institution tasked with upholding the very rights we're here to defend. Let me be clear, you can disagree with the court's decisions. You can critique its reasoning. That is your right. But we must not turn disagreement into delegitimization, especially when we rely on the courts to protect the constitutional freedoms we all cherish. We are here today not simply to examine tweets, agencies, or court rulings. We are here to examine whether the government, in any form, is abusing its power to decide what Americans can and cannot say. Because once the government takes it upon itself to decide which opinions are acceptable and which are not, we are no longer a free people. In this hearing, we will hear from legal scholars, journalists, and public policy experts. We will ask tough questions and we will demand honest answers. Because free speech is not just a partisan issue. It is not a conservative issue or a liberal issue. It is an American issue. And it is one that will determine the health, the strength, and the future of our democracy.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Yes, our reporter, Margot Cleveland, who's our senior legal writer, uncovered through her reporting facets of the censorship industrial complex and learned that the State Department was one of the federal entities that was engaging with non-governmental organizations and other entities in big tech to market, promote, censorship tools and blacklists, which were then used against my publication, The Federalist, and also the Daily Wire. Publications that are a threat to the reigning orthodoxies are targeted by the censorship industrial complex. They want to exist without people pointing out their lies or the fact that there are really important debates. And so we are suing the State Department for that, and it is ongoing, this support of the censorship industrial complex. It is the bureaucracy, really, which perpetuates this even more than a particular administration.
Yes, and I think it's so important to note that robust, respectful, bipartisan debate adds to our freedom, helps to keep us free, and allows that debate in the public square. And when you have an entity that becomes weaponized and shuts down one side of that speech and only allows speech with which it completely agrees, that is when you have that censorship writ large. My time expires. Professor Turley, I have a question I will submit to you for the record. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for being with us today. I'd like to start with you, Ms. Hemingway.